Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we, of course, are talking about the disastrous box office weekend for Supergirl. And in its very first weekend, it falls to number 2. It absolutely flops. It fails. It doesn't even reach the heights of the early projections that were putting it somewhere between $55 and $60 million. It doesn't even beat The Flash. This is bad. It's going to get worse, so we're going to talk about it. Oh, and the rest of the box office as well. Here we go. So, super flop, super slop, super whatever you want to call it. All of that's true. It all resonates. It all rings with truth. And it didn't start out very well. In fact, Supergirl lifts off with just $7.8 million in the box office previews. Miley Alcock was the titular DC superhero in the Warner Brothers film from Craig Gillespie. Notice how they are pushing James Gunn's name far away from this one. It's that big of a failure. In fact, it was such a big failure that by the time you added the 3 days that made up the Friday box office, that's the Wednesday IMAX screenings for fans, the Thursday preview screenings, and of course the Friday screenings, we ended up here. Box office Supergirl eyes $18 million on opening day. Except that's not exactly true. And again, it's one of the reasons why I think they continue to combine these numbers. But if that's the case, then we're going to make Saturday look bad. By extension, yeah, of course. Supergirl CinemaScore lands worse than the Marvels and the Flash. And that's not the worst thing that's the worst. There's a lot more worse here than that. You got to remember that CinemaScore is a reflection of the people who actually saw the film, because they are soliciting them for their grades on the way out of the theater. They also are soliciting people for would you recommend to see, which this film didn't score very high on either. Not to mention the fact that it wasn't a lack of knowledge that the film was going to be in theaters that caused it to fail, and is likely going to lead to its under $300 million performance globally by the end of its run, which anything under $300 million, Warner Brothers was saying out loud, unfortunately, that might be okay. Okay, you don't make any money from it when you stream it on your own service. You have to sell it to others to even do anything with that. Moving money from one pocket to the other doesn't actually change anything. But the audience actually bought tickets to go see the film and graded it as a B-. It was terrible. And that's, well, all you need to know. This, believe it or not, area of film genre, superhero films, those are targeted towards men. They have yet to appeal to men this year. And Toy Story 5 was definitely a film for the ladies. Ladies, I think it's great. You're getting a lot of films made for you. Nobody's going to see them. I mean, you guys are not supporting Supergirl. No, there wasn't a lot based on the demographics as far as, female representation in the audience. So that says something. But it comes under DC's own The Flash, Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, the 2011 Green Lantern, which was a B, and Shazam, Fury of the Gods, which is the worst Shazam, which got a B+. I'm going to say it this way. A B-, that's a terrible grade. But you have to take responsibility for what and who you appealed to. And that's a problem I think James Gunn, Mr. Gillespie, and Miley Alcock all are going to have a problem with. And that's fine. If you don't want to take accountability, this wasn't Accountability the movie. It should have been. It kind of is if you look at it from, my perspective of things. This is the one film that literally was driven by an entire segment of the population, or in this case, not driven by them. But we'll step back from that to talk about this. Marvin Montanaro over at That Park Place, one of my pals over there, says that as Supergirl flops, Variety reports Miley Alcock's controversial Christian Dads interview. And this actually did happen. But why would you want to do that? Why would you sow even more seeds of disdain for this thing, other than the fact that you know that it's going to do very poorly? And it creates its own story on a story you already created in the first place. By getting her to say something ridiculous, which is what I think reporters' jobs are now, or at least that's how they seem to be doing them, it's leading to a lot of bad publicity for films that really need nothing but good. And that's the other problem. If you make an appeal to a certain tiny sliver of an audience and you don't even get them to go.
I have many queer friends, so honestly, I'm kind of honored. I'm honored that that's happening. But I think because she doesn't live inside the binary of what we think a woman should be, that is what makes her so special and so exciting and so new.
Your film's going to make less than 300 million. It could make, barely 200 million. I still think about 230 million by the time its box office run ends. But if you're Warner Brothers right now, are you thinking that James Gunn's going to stick around after his contract expires? Do you think he's going to be there after Man of Tomorrow? I don't think so. Anyway, it was ridiculousness of attacking fans that got us to this point in time anyway. So, of course, let's go out and do it again. Everything DCU, the shill site or shill social media people, decided to say Supergirl earns around 10.75 million on Saturday. 18 million on the 3 days, and then 10 million on Saturday, which is going to show as a negative number on the numbers, which is only going to hurt the film. Now, mind you, it came in second place to Toy Story 5, which still, by even falling a little bit over 50%, still going to outperform it. We'll be looking at those numbers in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. But look at these other comparisons. Blue Beetle was 8.5 million. Shazam! Fury of the Gods was 11 million. Morbius, 13 million on a Saturday. And these other films, arguably, didn't perform very well. So it's now heading for $37 million, at least that's according to this, in its opening weekend due to toxic word of mouth. You see that? That's red there? Toxic word of mouth. Is that what it was? Or was it people, honest people, who paid money to go see the film, giving everybody their honest impression of the film on the way out? How is that toxic? It's accurate. It's people who paid to see it telling you how bad it stunk. And look, it's not like people didn't warn you. I did. I did an honest review so that you wouldn't waste your money. I see movies so you don't have to. That's one of my taglines. And I try to prevent everybody out there from seeing bad entertainment or supporting bad entertainment so they make more. The problem is Hollywood is desperate to not learn the right lesson. In fact, they go out and they continue to attack fans. They have their actors and actresses do it. They have their studio heads and producers doing it now. You even have like the controversy over Junkie XL being the second composer out of 3 to work on this film and walk away. It's not like people didn't know this was going to be bad. They stopped working on this project for a reason. And look, Toy Story 5 was always going to roll the following weekend. It's going to beat out Supergirl, which loses superpowers with 40 million opening. It's going to be less than that. This number here by Tony is hopes and dreams as far as I'm concerned, at least by the time we get the final tally in. And I still think finishing at 38.5 million, it would be a blessing, which is where I predicted we would end up. And I think I'm probably pretty close to right. Even Hollywood Reporter goes out there and puts this article in place. Supergirl landing in second place as box office as Toy Story 5 stays on top. Now, Miley Alcock stars in the superhero feature for Warner Brothers and DC Studios that arrives on the heels of last summer's Superman and didn't take advantage of any momentum. That's the part that they left out of that headline. And look, Elon Musk is out there posting a current film for free on X for 2 days. He convinced Uwe Boll to let that run and keep it available for people so that it would defeat the bans in Europe who are terrified of people actually realizing that they need or would fight back. But Elon Musk posts Armie Hammer's controversial comeback film, Citizen Vigilante. And you know what? 2 days worth of this. They tried to shut that down. The Barbra Streisand effect may actually make that film more viewed than Supergirl ever is in its entire theatrical run and maybe even on streaming, because X is the largest possible platform for information right now, beating out most news sources and even Hollywood as far as getting, attention to things. So good for him. But look, that's not the only thing that we have to talk about. We have to talk about what's coming in the box office next. And there's a whole lot of next. You have Minions and Monsters. You have The Odyssey. You have Spider-Man Brand New Day. And The Odyssey looks like it may be doing okay. At least when it opens in the U.S. box office, they're thinking 80 to 100 million. But I'm going to say it this way. Not if word of mouth ends up being highly negative, which it possibly Could be. If you look at any of the early trailers, the teasers, any of the early stuff that came out, you know what? That doesn't look all that good, and they're showing us the best they have. They're showing us the best they have, and what they're showing us is very dark, just like Supergirl, as far as color grading. There's a lack of lighting, and the idea that you're going to hide this film's failure with poor lighting. Like I said before, this is like lighting by Ed Wood, and if you know who that was, you know that's not a compliment. Anyway, let's look at the actual numbers, because I think this will draw even more attention over the coming days. When we look at Toy Story 5, even with a 56% drop, it's still in 4,400 theaters with $70 million in earnings. That's insane. And then you have like an overall total there that's almost at 300 domestically already. And we're only, I guess, 10 days in? 10 days in. And by the time we get to the end of this weekend, we'll be 5 days into Supergirl. I mean, at $38 million in 3,600 theaters in 77, 78 markets worldwide. Wait till we see the international and total worldwide box office. Supergirl at $38 million is an absolute disaster, catastrophe, terribleness. Look where it's at. If you look at the worldwide box office right now, it's at $68 million. 68. That's with 30 million in international earnings. If somebody's going to tell you that international is going to ride to the rescue here, it's not happening. China has zero or less than zero interest in this movie, especially if what's being reported in the box office over there is accurate, nor was there anything that was going to excite people to go and see it. And again, I have now seen a lot of, mediocre to terrible movies in the last several weekends. And of the three films that I've done recent box office conversations on, Toy Story was the best of them. And look, Obsession is still in third place. It made $9.8 million with a small drop of 27%. It's over $233 million, and it's quite possible that domestically it beats out the entirety of Supergirl. Not only that, the non-writer that is credited with writing Supergirl is rewriting Wonder Woman right now and Teen Titans. She had one credit for a short film ever before this and is rumored to have been linked to the Batgirl failure, which was put on a shelf and canceled by Warner Brothers, who took a tax write-off because of its terribleness. Why are we getting these people to write these films when they have no experience? Go hire the Obsession people. Go hire the Backdoors people. Backdoors is getting another extension to its run. If you take a look at that, you have Jackass Best and Last. That cost next to nothing to make and earned $8.4 million in only 2,855 theaters. So that has a very fixed kind of a market, a tight little niche of people who appreciate those films. And it still did not terrible. I mean, it made, $30 million less than Supergirl? Maybe. Disclosure Day is on the slide. It's the, most disappointing film I've seen in a while because I was looking forward to it. It should be called Disappointment Day, as I've suggested before, but it earned $8.1 million, falling all the way to number 5 in its 17th day of release. Are you kidding me? It hasn't even crossed 100 million domestically. And finally, Backrooms, as I said before, is getting an extended run in 2,396 theaters. So it's got 4.3 million. At least everything's staying above the 1 million mark, at least until we get down towards the bottom. But look, Scary Movie, 3 million, underperforms, 24 days in, 103 million. Probably didn't cost all that much to make, but it was truly out of form for the film. The Star Wars, Blandalorian, and Grey Goose, 62% fall from even last weekend, 1.6 million. This thing hasn't crossed $200 million domestic. I don't think it's going to do better internationally. In fact, let's look at Disclosure Day's international numbers. $99 million, guys. It's parity with the U.S. performance. And that's in 70-something other markets as well. So $193.6 million, and you only take away about 50% of the box office. You think Spielberg's movie's going to make money? Well, you're being taken care of by somebody, probably, if you do. Anyway, so Leviticus is at 929,000 as we fall out of the $1 million club, and Michael at still almost $1 million at 300 and 70 million overall domestically, and then, of course, the international numbers. It's only in 711 theaters, and it still beat out The Death of Robin Hood, a brand new film called The Invite, and The Furious, which I do believe is really not being promoted like it should. Really, truly, that film should be the sleeper hit. Devil Wears Prada is even in the conversation still, despite being in only 260 theaters. Again, at the end of the day, what actually matters? Well, the total box office performance. And believe it or not, it went down from last weekend. With 27 films reporting at this point, it was only 147.5 million, let's call it. And look, that number is down substantially from last weekend's performance, driven largely by the complete lack of interest and the complete number of screens that Supergirl has occupied. I'm going to tell you again, I sat in a theater that holds 400 people to see Supergirl. There were 17. I sat alone for quite a bit. Of course, I got there a few minutes early, but as the theater started to fill up, I started counting. And there might have been 18 people, but I still think one of them was an usher. I think I've mentioned that before. The other thing I've mentioned before is we all knew it was going to be this way. And that's the problem. Hollywood knows it too. It's why they aren't projecting even higher numbers for The Odyssey. It's why they're a little bit more muted on their expectations for Avengers Doomsday. And it's why maybe the response to Spider-Man Brand New Day could actually temper the rest of the year's films. I think it could. I think it will. I think Minions and Monsters is going to be okay, but I think Toy Story 5 is going to be the best that Disney gets this year because Moana live action is already being scaled back as far as expectations. I don't know. All I know is this. It was floptastic for Supergirl, finishing second in opening weekend and being beaten out almost by Toy Story 5 at doubling it up. Nearly. It could have been. It could be. Who knows? The number I'm reporting as box office right now could be 35 million. It could be. It could be lower than what it's being presented as because numbers are always revised, by the time we get to Monday afternoon. I think it's possible it revises down. Sometimes we see a revision up, but most of the time it's revising down. And I'm really keen and kind of interested to see how much this number moves over the course of the next few days. And by the time we get to next Friday, we're going to know what Supergirl really and truly looks like. And look, I'm going to be as straightforward and honest as possible. Analysts who said that $1 billion was on the table for Supergirl are out of their mind and you shouldn't be listening to them. You've got a performance here of a domestic total likely in line with about 110 million and maybe 90 million at the international box office, leaving this film at 200 million, likely losing about 100 or more million dollars. It wouldn't be surprising me if it lost 150 million dollars by the time you account for advertising, but Look, and don't tell me about write-offs. Don't tell me about streaming payments because moving money from one pocket to another is nothing. Until this goes to Netflix, somebody else, Prime, whatever, it's not making any additional money. And look, since they don't push physical media anymore, they're not making money off physical media sales. And believe it or not, that really bums me out. Probably you too, which is why I'm reconsidering an early purchase of GTA 6, which I'm going to wait for, because I want a physical disc. Maybe you do too. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the box office for this weekend. I got to solicit you for yours. That's right, it's time for audience participation. So let me know in the comments section below, were you likely to see Supergirl? Did anybody's review change your mind? Did you save your money and spend it on Toy Story 5, or are you waiting for Minions and Monsters to come out next weekend? Do you think that you got the chance to see Jackass, or were you never interested in the first place? And is it surprising to you that an R-rated horror film in only 2,965 theaters still performed at nearly $10 million and over $233 million domestic? Isn't that surprising? Anyway, your thoughts are as good as mine. Let me know what they are down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Check out the 6 Minute Daily if you haven't already on Monday. And until next time, see ya. Just hopefully at a better movie than Supergirl.